Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Jesse Duplantis here. I hope you're enjoying our YouTube videos. That's why you don't want to miss anything. So like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you will know when new content has been posted. That's like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. So right now, watch this and be blessed.
Now, I want you to listen to this. Great ambition and conquest without contribution. Let me say it again. Great ambition and conquest without contribution is without significance. How will history remember you? How will history remember your dream? What contribution have you done with your dream? What ambition and conquest will people remember? Let me say it again. Great ambition and conquest without contribution is without significance. How will history remember you? Think about that. And if you will put ambition and conquest with contribution, your dream will be so significant, they will speak about you for thousands of years. And history will remember you well. And that's why we still talk about Joseph, because his contribution and his ambition and his conquest was with great significance, to the point that he forgave the brothers that wanted to kill him and saved their lives and their children and children's children. You see, the end depends upon the beginning. The end, write that down, depends upon the beginning. You see, if Jesus tarry, how will history remember me? They won't remember me for building a building. People have built buildings. They're going to remember me from stopping people from suicide, from bringing joy, for getting them out of debt, to show them how to live by faith and not by sight. And it will go on and on. You see what I'm saying? Because what happens is my dream and my vision is now infusing, CJ, with yours. You see, what God is doing, all of us may have different dreams and things, but when it all comes, the end from the beginning, when it all happens, it all turns out to be the dream of God. Yeah. And we're all a part of this glorious, significant history. So I love it when they say, oh, he believes in crazy stuff. He's a dreamer. Yeah. Because I am making history. Not so they can just remember that, but to understand the reason for it. That God would be glorified. That's why Jesus said, if you ask me in my name, the Father will be glorified. If you shall ask anything in my name, I will do it. St. John 14, you go read it. See, he is interested in one thing, to glorify his Father. So he is a great example to follow. Now, I want to say this, and I want you to listen to me. You're looking at a man that is an avid reader. Without sounding prideful or arrogant, I can talk to you on just about any subject. I have a very phenomenal library as far as religion, but different thing. But I seek knowledge constantly. I like input. Listen to this. Not knowing what happened before you were born is to forever be a child. Why am I preaching the gospel? I had to go study all those that came before me, that great cloud of witnesses. And if I would not have known their dreams, their aspirations, I would forever bind myself to be a child. Because, see, you got to know why people do what they do. Let me say it again. Not knowing what happened before you were born is to forever be a child. Or in other words, God had called me as a traveling missionary, an evangelist to the lost and a revivalist to the church. So, Jeannie, what I had to do is go back. And I got a set of books years ago called 20 Centuries of Great Preaching. Some of you may have that in your library. And I've read these things, these great men, the G. Campbell Morgans. You talk about an expositor. Spurgeon. And I began to read why they did what they did. John Calvin. Even though they said some things, brother, that I did not believe in terms of, but I had to know that I would ever put myself in prison and would never grow. I would forever make myself a child. You see what I'm saying? And I find that a lot of things that these men and women did were infused into my dreams as I would go out in the world and preach this gospel. Do you see that? I never just wanted to be a child. Because the Bible said, when you become a man, you put away childish things. You must know your heritage of faith and your history of that great cloud of witnesses, because all of them had dreams. Now, if God would rewrite the book of Hebrews chapter 11, would you be in the chapter? And a lot of them stumbled. Samson stumbled terribly, but he's in the chapter. Moses messed up, but he's in the chapter. Abraham caused the Mideast problem. And Sarah. But he's in the chapter, and she's in the chapter. I need to know that. Why? So I will not be a child all the days of my life. God said be childlike, but he didn't say be childish. See, your dream is not something that's just childish. It may be childlike, and I refuse to ever be a child. I want to grow to the fullness of the stature of Christ. I want my dream to infuse with you. When you gave into our dream, that's just one facet of you infusing with me. Every time I pray for you, every time you pray for me, when words of knowledge went forth and you received them. So those things that God's going to speak to you, Caleb, and sweetheart, listen, I'm a part of that now. Isn't that amazing? Never thinking that your grandpa would become my spiritual father. B.B. Hankins. I asked him, what does B.B. mean? He said, Billy Bob. Billy Bob. Yeah. And your grandfather that I know of, I'm probably the only man he ever asked, because everybody wanted him to be their spiritual father, but he came to me. He said, Jesse, would you be my son? I had no idea of spiritual father. I was raised Catholic. You do what you got to do. I said, what does that mean? And I needed direction and guidance. And a lot of people asked me today, who's your spiritual father? I said, I'm an orphan. Because he went home to be with the Lord. And if you come to my offices, or especially in my boardroom, there's a picture of Billy Bob Hankins and Velma Hankins. You know why I remember them? I got involved in his dream. You know why he wanted me to be a son to him? He got involved in my dream. And it fused together with the dream of God. Think about that for a minute. It was a blessing. In Hurricane Katrina, when there was devastation everywhere. Oh, Lord, I never want to go through that mess again. I called Steve. Remember that? I said, Steve, are you all right? That shocked him so much that I would call and ask, do you need anything? He was not under my ministry, but he has the same dream. Now, he may be different in certain areas and things. That's why I called you, Wally, because the Lord said, call Wally. I didn't know you were walking in the yard thinking about what just happened. You know, Wally and Sandy, y'all know what I'm talking about. But see, you got involved in my dream. I got involved in your dream. I said, Steve, are you okay? You all right? Do you need anything? Do you need any money? You all right? He said, I'm doing fine. Thank you, Brother Jesse. And then he became my spiritual son. It was just amazing. And without sounding being critical, just being honest here, being truthful. I said, you have never had a spiritual father. You had a master. You do this or else. You pay to be my daddy. Don't shout me down when I'm preaching good. It's the last night and you getting out of town. I didn't realize how hurt he was. Not being critical of anybody, but it was just the truth. God told me something about Dexter Easley. I went and preached at his church. I didn't know Dexter from anybody. And the Lord said, help him. I said, okay. What do you want me to do? Open doors. I said, okay. And I did. And I'm not bragging about that. That's not the issue. He got involved in my dream. Quit thinking about money. That's one so small facet of that. And I got involved in his. Nate, been knowing him for years. Years. I preached for him in Seattle, when his children were little. Now they're grown. He got involved in my dream even before he came here. I got involved in his. And God infusing it, closing it into his dream. So that people would say, look at them dreamers coming. What an honor to be called a dreamer. And the title of this series is, I hope they say that about me. Jerry Savelle looked me in the face years ago and said, you are such an encourager. Why is that, Jesse? I said, because I've been discouraged. No one cared for my soul. They didn't care. They didn't care. And I made up my mind that I would care. I'm not bragging on myself. And the Lord, he said, that's me, Jesse. You're acting like me. Yeah. I had to learn. I stumbled sometimes, just like Joseph did, said some things I shouldn't have said, made some people mad because they misunderstood it. Maybe I could have said it a lot better. Let me just say that. But, at least I said it. And now I'm known as, and without sounding private, a man of character and integrity. I love saying this. It's one of my greatest things. In 37 years of full-time ministry, 39 years of preaching, I've never had a scandal. None. Sexually pure, financially pure. That's not hard. I passed the purity test. I passed the money test. Isn't that amazing? I was tested just like Joseph was. Those things will happen in the prison, in the pit, and in the palace. As someone told me about that, preaching that. Yeah. There's always some kind of test somewhere going on, But when you understand that you have contribution with significance instead of without it, your history will be remembered. Let me say this and close. Your accomplishments should pass your own lifetime and survive into the lives of others. Your story should become their story. Let me say it again. Your accomplishments should pass your own lifetime and survive into the lives of others. Your story should be their story. I never had a chance to meet Smith Wigglesworth. He died, I believe, before I was born. But I say this in close. I was asked to preach in Bradford, England, which is where Smith Wigglesworth lived and owned a home. So when I got to the church, they were all excited that Jesse Duplantis was coming. They said, is there anything we can do for you, Brother Jesse? I said, yes. Where can we take you? I said, I would like to show my respects and go to the grave of Smith Wigglesworth. Would you like to see the home that he lived in? I said, I would love to do that. He said, is there any other dead people you'd like to know about? Remember that, Kathy? I said, no, that's fine right there. So I went to the grave. As I walked out of the car, before the pastor, or before the person that brought me, he assigned a person to us, me and Kathy. The grave guy that took care of the graveyard, he said, "You're from America?" I said, "Yes, sir. You've come to see Mr. Wigglesworth's grave?" I said, "How do you know that?" He said, "Americans come all the time." I said, "I know some things about Smith you may have never known. Would you show me his grave?" "Yes, sir, I will take you to it." He brought me to it, and it says Smith Wigglesworth, his wife, his daughter. I said, "Did you see his wife there, sir?" "Yes, he raised her from the dead." He went, "Ooh, that's good." I said, "He raised her from the dead, sir. Anybody else in your cemetery raised their wife from the dead?" It shook him up. And you know, a Muslim owns his house. Because no Christian, well, they should have bought that thing. You know how many visiting people would go see where Smith Wigglesworth lived, and you walk from here maybe out to the gate, and that's the park where he prayed. I'd followed his footsteps. He's not my favorite preacher. You want to know who my favorite preacher was? And I never met him neither. George Whitefield. Oh, God. This is the man that stood and had so many people coming, and the churches were so mad at him. He said, "I go to the fields." It's called field ministry. Could he preach the gospel? I found his grave. Remember that, Kathy? I found where he went. I said, "Oh, God." I read his book. What a man of humbleness, but a fiery preacher. He didn't know it, but he actually died of a heart attack. I saw the place where he died and the place that he was buried. And then I told Brother Hagin that, and he said, "Jesse, can I give you a word?" I said, "Yes, sir." And he leaned over to me. He said, "Be careful that you don't get too close to that, or follow too close, because the same things that happened to them will happen to you." See, because I was infusing myself in his dream, and I did. But I thought, oh, yeah, I never thought of that. Brother Hagin spoke that to me. I'll never forget that. He said, "It's good." He said, "He was something, wasn't he?" I said, "Brother Hagin, he was something." He said, "Hey, Jess, tell me about heaven." I said, "You've been there." He said, "Let's swap preaching stories." Now, Brother Hagin could tell some stories. It was a great day. And I thought I could learn. But there is, in my opinion, no man in this generation has ever done the work of George Whitefield. Shut down wars. Walk out on the battlefield with cannons blowing and blood bust, and just stop in the name of Jesus. Preach the gospel, and the two sides would drop their rifles and fall on their knees and just ask God to forgive them. He went to America 14 times, and every time he went, he got the whole ship saved every time. And there were some heathen guys on them ships. I think you've studied George Whitefield too, haven't you? Whew. What a man. But he didn't know how to treat his wife correctly. He said, he loved his wife, but he couldn't tell her because I must give my life to God. He's the one who came up with the statement, "I'd rather rust out than wear out." Or wear out and then rust out, one of them. He preached to 60,000 people in a field. You know who took care of it? You know who printed his sermons or his tape ministry? Benjamin Franklin was his printer. And Ben Franklin said, "There's no way Anybody can hear George Whitefield with 60,000. This is documented history of America. No way can anyone hear his voice. So he went to one of Whitefield's meetings, Ben Franklin, and stood at the back, and he could hear Whitefield's voice as clear as he was standing next to him. God was amplifying that man's voice. That like you be in the Superdome and you talking with no microphone. And he preaching. He said, and through first part of his message, I decided to give him my coppers, which was his pennies. He said he got halfway through, I gave him my silvers. He said when he finished, I gave him my gold, my silvers, and my coppers. He said, I ain't going back over there no more. Could he preach the gospel, partner? He had problems. He believed in predestination. And his good friend from England, Wesley, was jealous of Whitefield. In fact, Wesley's brother, let me tell you, Charles Wesley, who wrote hymns, great, phenomenal hymns, he said, what's the matter with you, John? Because it was through Wesley's ministry that Whitefield got saved. But he was pulling more people. And when he found out that Whitefield believed in predestination because he was a Calvinist, John Wesley jumps up and says, I slammed my foot against this damnable doctrine. And Whitefield would cry and say, oh, Brother Wesley, let us just preach Jesus Christ. But yet Wesley preached his funeral and honored him. And their dreams infused. And it's still working in me. So you remember this Visionary Leadership Conference, because your dream will infuse with everyone around you. And it will bring forth what God has called that will be done. Did you enjoy it tonight? Stand to your feet. I know it's a little late. It's 9:47. It's really not that late at all, to tell you the truth. It has been such an honor. Pastor Nate, I need you to make a couple of announcements. I'm going to turn this over to you. We've already prayed and believed, moved in the Spirit of God. Remember this statement. Encouragement is the oxygen of the soul. Breathe. Because a new day is coming. And because of your character and your understanding, it will produce what you've been believing for. And this white-headed man will rejoice with you as you receive what you rightfully deserve by God Almighty. Give the Lord a standing ovation as Pastor comes.
This media is copyrighted by Jesse Duplantis Ministries for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this media or of any pictures or accounts without Jesse Duplantis Ministries' consent is strictly prohibited.